let's dive right in. Today, we're heading to the bizarre and pretty fascinating edges of economic theory, a world of all or nothing. So let me ask you this. Can you imagine a product where a tiny, tiny price hike, I'm talking like 1 cent, makes every single customer just walk away? A world where demand just, poof, vanishes? And then what about the flip side? A product so essential that people will buy the exact same amount whether it cost $1 or $1,000. It sounds pretty impossible, right? Well, these are the very ideas that we're going to unpack today. To really get a grip on how everyday markets work, we first need to take a trip to the fringes, to explore the absolute extremes. And the one word that's going to guide us on this whole journey is elasticity. Now, it sounds all academic, but it's actually super simple. It's just a way of measuring how much we change our buying habits when a price changes. Are we really sensitive to price, or do we kind of just not care? That's all elasticity is. Okay, so this brings us to the two main characters in our story today. On one side, you've got the perfectly elastic consumer who has literally infinite sensitivity to price. And on the other, you have the perfectly inelastic consumer who has zero sensitivity. Total, complete opposites. Let's start with our first extreme, what we call perfectly elastic demand. This is a world where the consumer has all the power. So what this means is that customers are only willing to buy a product at one single price. Not a penny more. The moment a seller tries to raise that price, even just a little, poof, every single buyer disappears. Demand completely collapses. It's what economists call infinite elasticity. And the graph for this tells the story perfectly. It's a flat, horizontal line. This line represents the one and only price that the market will accept. If a seller tries to go above it, their demand just drops to zero. There is absolutely no wiggle room. Now, while a purely perfect version of this is pretty rare, it gets really close in what's called a perfectly competitive market. Think about a farmer's market with, say, 10 stalls all selling identical apples. If 9 of them sell their apples for $1 and one stall tries to sell theirs for $1.05, what happens? Come on, you know the answer. Everyone just moves to the other 9 stalls. That seller's demand has effectively become perfectly elastic. Okay, let's swing that pendulum all the way to the other side. Now we're going to explore perfectly inelastic demand, a world not of infinite choice, but of absolutely no choice at all. With perfectly inelastic demand, the quantity that people want to buy is completely fixed. It does not matter if the price skyrockets or plummets, people will buy the exact same amount. In this case, the elasticity is zero. Price has basically lost all of its power. The graph here tells the whole story. It's a perfectly vertical line, straight up and down. This means that no matter where the price moves, up or down, the quantity demanded stays locked in place. It's like a wall. That quantity simply cannot change. A real-world example makes this crystal clear. Think of a life-saving drug, something like insulin. If a patient needs 1 vial a week to live, they will buy 1 vial a week, whether it costs $20 or $200. They won't buy less because they can't, and they can't use more. Their demand is, for all practical purposes, perfectly inelastic. So we've visited these two pretty theoretical worlds, but what's the point of it all? Let's build a bridge back to reality and see why this actually matters. It's a fair question, right? I mean, if you're never going to find a perfectly horizontal or a perfectly vertical demand curve out in the wild, why do economists spend so much time talking about them? Well, it's because these extremes are the fundamental building blocks for understanding everything in between. They act as theoretical goalposts. By understanding the absolute limits, economists can better analyze real-world markets, predict how things like taxes will affect behavior, and build models that guide really important policy decisions. And here's the really practical takeaway. For a business, understanding elasticity is life or death. If you're selling a product with tons of competitors, something that's close to perfectly elastic, you know that a price hike could be a total disaster. And for government, if you tax an essential good, something close to perfectly inelastic, you know that people aren't going to stop buying it. They'll just have less money for everything else. Okay, let's lock this in. Here's a quick way to remember all this. Elastic is a huge change in demand from a tiny change in price. Inelastic is no change in demand, no matter how big the price change. And for the graphs, just think, a horizontal line looks like a very stretched out flat elastic band. A vertical line is rigid and unbending, just like inelastic demand. So I'll leave you with a final thought. Think about the things you buy every day. Your coffee, your gas, your favorite streaming service. They obviously aren't perfect extremes. But now that you understand the goalposts, Where do you think they fall on the spectrum? And why?